Mercenaries, Spies and Private Eyes is a role-playing game published by Flying Buffalo Incorporated. It is basically a modern adaptation of the fantasy role-playing game, Tunnels and Trolls, from the same editor. But where TNT was known for its fantastic, heroic, and funny tone, grounding MSPE in a more contemporary setting gave it a resolutely more realistic, even gritty feel. The blend of the simple and pleasant rules system of TNT, and the needs of a more realistic setting gave birth to one of the most fluid and flexible gaming system ever written. MSPE is still available and is going to be re-released through a Kickstarter. MSPE is at heart a contemporary role-playing game in a very broad sense. It covers the three kinds of setting implied by its title. First, stories of mercenaries and action adventures. Think Black Hawk Down, Eagle Has Landed or The Dogs of War. Secondly, espionage adventures. Think rather James Bond, Mission Impossible, or novels of Ludlamore Higgins. And finally, detective stories. Whodunits or noir. You can refer to your favorite TV series, the traditional detective novels, or even historical whodunits, like the fabulous SPQN novels from John Maddox Roberts, as well as those of P.C. Doherty or even Brother Cadfael medieval mysteries. There are guidelines included in the rules on how to set up games about those themes. But that's only the surface, and there are more things in MSPE to ratio than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Tunnels and Thompsons is the title of a chapter in the MSPE First Edition rulebook, explaining how to mix the contemporary setting of MSPE and fantastic, horror, magic, fantasy. It was replaced by an expanded chapter called Night Stalkers in the Sleuth edition with titles like science fiction, horror, fantasy, and stats for mummies, yetis or pteranodons. As frequently as pulps depict heroes thrown in a science fiction setting, they also send them into archaic, fantasy, or sword and sandals ones. If you would like to play this kind of scenarios, it is possible to use Tunnels and Trolls to enrich MSPE of fantasy elements. Moreover, as MSPE and TNT are compatible, that does not require any modification in the rules. You need TNT 5th edition, not the recent TNT recently published. TNT 5th edition is available as a PDF. Simply use the rules of MSPE for characters creation, experience, etc., and include the elements of fantasy from TNT, magic, races, monsters, weapons, armors. Indeed, you could play straight fantasy using MSPE for the rules, and TNT for the materials. But remember that you're not anymore in the heroic feel of TNT. MSPE gives a much more down-to-earth low-level fantasy experience. If your players want their characters to survive, they should better be good. One of my favorite periods for role-playing is that of the swashbucklers' adventures, that of the novels from Alexander Dumas, Michel Zavacco, Raphael Sabatini, or, nearer to us, those of Robert Merle, Arturo Perez Revert, Hubert Montfedet or Jean D'Allen, or, if you prefer a small fantasy twist, Pierre Pevel. In the past, I did use MSPE for some light-hearted swashbuckling whodunits, and I was only following what was recommended in the rulebook. Don't forget that MSPE was conceived from the start to make it possible to play in a historical period. After all, Mike Stackpole, the author of MSPE itself, announced in the rules, at page 80 of the first edition, shifting the time frame of an adventure can make it interesting. Everyone has enjoyed Three Musketeers movies, and there is no reason the MSPE rules cannot be used to play out those adventures. Slipping magic, superstition or supernatural creatures into that type of setting would be easy and interesting. I shall certainly not contradict him. Time travel can be something else than being a member of a time patrol. The characters in a pulp game can be fighting a villain with time travel capabilities, and the help can come from a scientist with not a reliable time machine or a modern-day shaman that can send the PCs in the past, but with their still bodies vulnerable in the present to complicate things. Timeline from Michael Crichton would make a good scenario, ready to play, about rescuing lost peoples in the Middle Ages, and a quite gritty rescue. Before finishing this video, I would like to stress that, by using the tricks that were part of Pulp's writing, dreams, memories, machines, hereditary memory, contents of a book, magical or mystic transits or artifact, part-time membership of a time or space patrol, the same characters could take part in all of those adventures, which was something that happened to some recurring characters in Pulp series. I could continue to multiply the examples, but that's not my aim. What I wanted to explain is that MSPE is much more than a present-day RPG. If you look at it the right way, MSPE spectrum is as broad as Pulp's inspiration. And that was limitless.